Beautiful view from my infinity pool. Hopefully you guys can see that okay. I'm using the front end of my phone. Now, how did I stack enough cash to buy me the freedom to basically travel the world? Now, to start off with, I only recently took off and left Australia for good. I don't want to jinx myself, but I've taken off effectively for good. I don't plan on going back for many years. I've left the country for good, and only recently, the last couple of months, for the last, say, 4 or 5 years, how I've been able to travel is I'll do 1 or 2 trips overseas per year and then return back to Sydney, Australia. Now, uh, let's just get into the business of this video. A lot of people have been asking me. People have been filling out the coaching form and asking how am I able to travel. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to just explain how I stacked enough cash. And if you're lazy or you want to get rich tomorrow, then this is not the video for you. You're just lazy. I had to work and earn my right to go and travel around the world. You might not like it, but there's some tips in here that I think might help a lot of you guys. So the basic understanding of how the world really works is that men are always slaves in every country. We're slaves to the government, and the United States was built on this premise of freedom, and they had constitution rights, and they would carry guns, to try to push back against the government. That was basically what the United States was built on. It was basically the only country that has ever done that worldwide. Men are always cannon fodder for wars and slaves in every country worldwide to the beginning of history. This is just a historical fact. And most of you men are the reason why. You're slaves because you are the problem, because you contribute to this, and you uphold your own slavery. But I'm not like that. I can see the slavery, and I'm going to push back against it. I'm going to say things that most people won't be willing to say publicly, and I'm going to push back against the slavery. But simplistically, historically, men are just slaves, and your job is to try to get out of that slavery. Part of the brainwashing is you will work until you're 65 and you're sick and you've got diabetes and you've got hip problems and you can't walk upstairs because your knees are gone, you've got arthritis in your hands, and that's when you're going to get your freedom. You're always brainwashed into thinking that your freedom is only a few years away. Don't worry, just take a couple weeks off this year, go on a little trip, and then come back to your slave 9 to 5. You'll get your freedom eventually. Now, before the Industrial Revolution, I would say there were a lot of men that were freer than they are today. Okay, now we've got that out of the way. How did I do it? I started out in the ghetto. Single mother, I didn't have any uh, privileges at all. And in fact, in my late 20s, I became disabled. I needed a hip replacement. Not saying that for sympathy, it's just a financial fact that you go in for a hip replacement. It costs a lot of money. You can't earn any money. And you're physically and mentally struggling during that time period. And so you lose a lot of money plus the opportunity cost, and everything that goes with that. I had 3 of those. So if you're watching this video and you're thinking, "Oh, Dave's privileged," or you're going to make up some bullshit excuse, you're just a pussy. I got to just tell it to your face. You're a pussy because I've had multiple hip replacements. I keep getting up, like I keep getting knocked down. I came from the ghetto. I've had everything thrown at me. My own mother abused me after my first hip replacement while I was in hospital. I don't have any family coming to save me. My own father uh, just screwed me over, didn't give me anything at all, didn't help me out. Selfish boomer. So, wherever you are in life, there's a very good chance that I started lower than you. So what I'm trying to say is that if I can do it, you can do it, right? I'm not some privileged guy that had a trust fund and had a privileged upbringing. So how did I do it? I firstly financially I looked at what are my outgoing costs, and my biggest outgoing cost was always from the beginning was rent. Keeping a roof over my head was always my biggest problem, and I didn't know how to solve this problem. I just kept looking at the problem thinking, oh, how am I going to solve it? How am I going to solve it? And this is a life lesson for you guys is there's so many problems out there that you think cannot be solved. But if you continuously look at it, look at the problem, refresh, keep looking at the problem, and then eventually just keep butting your head against the problem, eventually you may solve it. And what I did was I kept looking at the problem of housing. Let me check the camera's still on. Yep. Camera's still on. We're in business. High production value for you guys. Um, and I realized, okay, how can I reduce my rent? I got a 2 bedroom apartment and then rented out the second room. A lot of you guys do that already. You rent with a friend, and then it cuts your rent in half. It's obvious. It works out cheaper. You share the electricity, and you share the internet. You share the gas, whatever. It works out cheaper than having, say, a 1 bedroom or a studio apartment, right? The other option is you just rent one room out of a house or an apartment, and you pay as a sublease to somebody else. I kept looking at that problem. I thought, I don't even want to pay for a studio, and I don't want to share a 2 bedroom apartment, the cost of a 2 bedroom apartment. Um, I want to live for free. I want to hack the system as if I'm already rich. I came up with the conclusion that if I look at the floor plan for houses and apartments, some apartments, some floor plans, they have the ability to turn a common area into another room. And so I started looking and inspecting apartments, and it takes a lot of time to find them. That the lounge room is not connected to the front door. That's one simplistic way to look at it. The lounge room or the dining room is off the front door, and it's not connected to the front door, so you don't have to build another wall. And I discovered that, let's just say I got a large 2 bedroom apartment with a good floor plan where I can convert the living room into a third bedroom. I can stay in the third bedroom, effectively living in the lounge room, rent out the 2 rooms, and the rent for those 2 rooms will also cover the electricity, the gas, the rent, the Wi-Fi, and everything. And what I do is I include the electricity and the Wi-Fi and fully furnish it as well, because after looking at the laws in Australia, if it's a sublease, there's different ways of looking at it, but I discovered that if it's a sublease or it is just sharing, the people have more rights than if it's technically a boarding house. And so what I kind of did was try to figure out how to create my own version of a boarding house legally. And I did my research, and there was a few things I needed to provide, and I needed to prove it and have a paper trail. And then when there's a bit of an outlay. I had to buy furniture. I had to organize the apartment. Then I had to find people. I had to spend a lot of time, having inspections, and I had to make sure that I lived with the right people. And next thing you know, I've got a 2 bedroom or a 3 bedroom. I'm renting out the 2 rooms, and I'm living for free. After I figured out how to do that, I bought my freedom. Then every cent that I spent on food, entertainment, healthcare, whatever, was my own. I was effectively living for free. Then what I did was, at that point, I didn't rest on my laurels. I I got myself a part-time job, and at that point, I wasn't really educated or anything. I started doing what you guys would call now Uber Eats, delivery, pizza delivery, and my wrecked car that got smashed into, I managed to get it fixed so that it semi worked, and I started doing pizza delivery. Then what I did was I found myself a full time construction job working in concreting, which turned out to be a bad idea because I ended up needing more hip replacements because of the manual labor that I was doing. But I had no other choice but to do manual labor because I came from the ghetto, uneducated, with no backers, nobody to help me out. I was working in concreting, which meant that not that I woke up at 6 and arrived on the construction site at 7. I had to wake up at 5, get to mix the concrete just to arrive on site by 7. So we started work at 6. We started work an hour before the construction workers started, which meant that I would usually finish a little bit earlier instead of finishing at 3:30, maybe 2:30. But as you guys should be aware of, uh, concreters often have to work long hours, and sometimes I'd have to work through to 4. So I wouldn't just be doing like 8 hours, sometimes 9 hours, sometimes 10 hours, sometimes till the sun goes down because there's a concrete pour that needed to be done. Now, that was a Monday to Friday and half a Saturday. And what would happen was I started studying accounting at like just a community college, like a TAFE, we call it in Sydney. I started studying accounting, and that was only 2 nights a week. So, 2 nights a week, I would finish work after doing a 9, sometimes 10-hour day. Then I would go to TAFE to study accounting. And the rest of the week, there were 3 more days of the Monday to Friday, including the Saturday. So 4 days a week, I was working part time delivering pizza. So that was so basically I would wake up, let's just say 4:30, 4 oh yeah, 4:35, get to work at 6. Um, and after delivering pizza, I would get home sometimes 10:30, 11, sometimes a little bit later after doing, say, a 4-hour shift delivering pizza. I'd get my 5 or 6 hours sleep, and then the day would start again. And I was doing that 6 days a week consistently. On the Saturday, one of the hacks is what you do is you uh, uh, on a Saturday, what I was doing is I would finish work late at night and um, have a few drinks. And there was a Brazilian guy that was delivering pizza as well. And also I had the pizza company I was working for. I bounced around multiple different pizza companies because one thing that happens when you're at the lowest rung of society, you're treated like shit by people. You're actually treated like a slave while working harder than anyone else in the place. So I bounced around quite a few pizza delivery places and quite a few Monday to Friday, construction jobs too, until I found people that actually treated me with somewhat respect. And in fact, I was treated better working for the pizza place than anywhere else. In a way, because I was spending so much time there, they became family. And on a Saturday, Sunday was my day off. Saturday, the boss, who was actually he was actually a bodybuilder, who was working in finance as well while running a pizza shop, and he was building a chain of pizza shops. Cool dude, and a Brazilian guy that was delivering pizza. We'd go have a drink every Saturday. I'd wake up with a bit of a hangover Sunday morning, and Sunday morning is when I would start my real business. And my real business was landscaping. I decided that I wanted to build a landscaping or garden maintenance job where I started out with a lawnmower and my car, and my pizza delivery car turned was a hatchback. The back popped up, and it turned into my ute in effect. And I'd put my lawnmower in there. And in the beginning, I couldn't get any jobs, so on a Sunday, I would print up these little pamphlets, and I go deliver them and knock on doors. If someone's front yard looked messy, I would knock on the door and offer my services. Uh, it was quite easy to build up enough clientele that it started. I was busy all Sunday, and some Sundays I would be working as the sun was going down, hustling to try and finish off a lawn just so that I could get home and then start work again on Monday. I During that time period, while stacking the cash, um, I wasn't really spending anything because I was working all the time. Only on a Saturday I would go out for a drink. The rest of the time was just basically fuel, maintenance of things like my car, whatever. And I taught myself how to service my car. So I changed the oil, I changed the oil filter, the air filter as well. I even taught myself how to change the spark plugs. That was a bit risky. You just get like these little steel things and you slot them in to make sure the spark plugs are the right, you know, length. And tires, changing wheels, anything like that. I figured out how to do it myself to cut down the costs, and I wasn't paying rent, so all my money was my money, and I started stacking cash, a lot of cash, fast. That started to get to the point where my garden maintenance started to kick off, and uh, unfortunately, around that time, my right hip started to hurt. I went and got an X-ray. It turns out I needed to have another hip replacement. They took me in, and they did. It turns out they did an experimental surgery on my right hip. So my life was thrown into disarray. I had to spend a lot of the money that I had worked and saved, and I started again. Turns out afterwards, I wasn't able to walk very well, and I was living with chronic pain, but I refused to take painkillers. Spent a lot of money on a surgery that I didn't need, and it was very painful. So that was a major setback. At that point, I realized, okay, I've stacked enough cash. I can still do some part-time work here and there. I'm not paying rent, which means I'm ahead of the game just by figuring out that one hack. And that was when I started to uh, live my life because I had bought myself some freedom. I would go out there and do DG game, approaching girls. I entered the community. It was quite funny because a lot of people would see me gaming all the time, almost every day, while working part time. And I got into other passions of mine, which were geopolitics, economics, and and how the world really works. And so I was watching lectures, I was reading books, I was going to and from places, listening to Audible, and I started out with the most basic of economics books, and then I went through almost every geopolitical book there is, not only listening to it through Audible, but also having the physical book as well, while also going out there and spending a lot of my time gaming, out there approaching girls and picking up girls. Because what I had done through basically eating dirt, working really hard, 7 days a week, basically, is I stacked enough cash, and having that hack of not having to pay rent, I managed to buy myself enough freedom to do so. And what happened was my passion Also, let me rewind. I While I was working 7 days a week, I was also renting out some of the rooms to cute girls too, that I would end up dating on and off as well. And so I was multitasking there, and I was also doing game as well, where I would be working 7 days a week, and I would meet girls in the club on a Saturday night. I would pick up girls there, and also I would pick up girls in between. There's guys that say they don't have time to game. I had no time, but I would be driving a truck into a petrol station with a deadline to pour some concrete. I got 5 minutes to fill the thing with petrol, go into the shop, and if I saw a girl in there, I would open up and start an approach with that girl. So everything was an opportunity. Let's just say I wanted to eat something bad, and sometimes I did in the morning. The only thing open, at 5 a.m. in the morning is those 24-hour McDonald's. I'd go in there and try open up a set. So, uh, and on a Sunday, if I didn't have any work on a Sunday or it was a quieter Sunday, I'd go do some game anyway. So I was basically on the job 24/7, 7 days a week. And I bought myself some freedom. When I started gaming a lot, because I bought myself some freedom, uh, I heard that people thought that I was homeless because I was out there gaming a lot. I got into some passions of mine, which was social media, and I started helping out some people build their social media accounts. Many of them went viral, many of them are very famous right now. I got into politics, and then I started up my own social media back then. Instead of talking about dating or anything like that, I was talking about geopolitics, mainly focused on China. And there were times there where I was getting 800,000 to a million clicks per month on some of my social media accounts. So I was doing quite well back then. Not so much. If you watch this video, I'll be lucky to get 50 views. And uh, what happened was I just stacked little bits of cash while working part time around that time period. And I was basically treading water, living in chronic pain. And I found myself a job through a friend of mine working in it's like a club, a really well known club in Sydney. And that club, uh, I was able to not only work there but game. And my friend, he actually said that to me. He said, "Look, we need someone to work here, and um, we're okay with you gaming the clients." And so I got myself a job where I had the ability to multitask, and I probably wouldn't have taken them up on the offer to work there if I wasn't given the opportunity to game girls as well, because what I wanted to do was do things that were in line with what I wanted to do in life at that point. Um, and up until this point, if you're watching this, you might need to eat dirt for a little bit, maybe even a year, 7 days a week. Just put your head down, go full monk mode, wash dishes, deliver pizza, do awful jobs like construction, stack that cash, look at how much money you're spending, um, and be smart about it. During that time period, what I did was I cut down more costs. I put the extra bandwidth, not only to studying geopolitics, economics, um, and also putting in time refining my game. I was recording my sets, I was writing field reports, I was doing infields, and I was refining what did and didn't work in my game while studying economics and geopolitics. On top of that, I had the bandwidth to then start looking at all of my other expenses. I sold my car, and at that point, I was using public transport. So now, what I did around this time is I looked at the costs for public transport, and it's not cheap, especially not in Australia. And I found out ways that I could basically just fare evade. I'm just going to tell you guys straight. How can I fare evade, not pay any money? At this point, I kind of hated the government because I understood what was really going on. And I'm like, it was kind of an excuse, but it also wasn't. So I figured out how to catch trains and buses without getting fined, without anyone noticing, how I can get myself on and off a train or a bus, a ferry, a light rail, without paying anything ever. And I figured out where the ticket inspectors were, how the tickets worked, how the machines worked, and how I could hack the system. That reduced my costs of traveling. And so it gave me the ability to travel anywhere in Sydney basically for free. Then I also needed access to a pool and a gym. Another hack I discovered was you can join up to the gym, and the card that you use is disconnected from the payment system. They have to manually shut it off. And if you join up to the gym and you know everybody in the gym, no one's going to question you ever because you're a regular in the gym or the pool, and you say hello to everybody, you're friendly like myself, everyone knows who you are. You can then pause your payments on the subscription. That card, in theory, may never be shut down, and you'll be able to use it to enter and leave the gym indefinitely while everybody in the gym actually knows you and they're not going to question you. So I figured out how to have access to the gym for free. Then I went through everything else. How can I hack dating? How can I hack, I was drinking 7-Eleven coffee instead of going to Starbucks. It's like $1 at 7-Eleven. Then you get the app, and every 5 or 6, you get a free one. I was basically living for free. And I was also gaming in Sydney, approaching girls, picking up girls. I knew where the free water was. I knew where I could charge my phone. I knew that if I went into the casino at certain times, I could get a free drink and I could get free food, sandwiches and biscuits and nuts. um, and it wasn't that I was broke, it's that I was stacking cash, I was reducing my costs, just trying to figure out how I could get this escape velocity and buy my freedom somehow. That's what I was really doing. I was looking for opportunities. The money that I was stacking, I put into high interest savings accounts. I'd go into the bank, and I would ask for a special. I'm like, 5%, is that the best you can do? Can you do a little bit better? And surprisingly, believe it or not, if you go into your bank and you say, can I get a few more percent? You'll be surprised. They might say, okay, for 3 months, I'll give you 6%. It's something. It's better than nothing. I started buying gold and silver. I didn't really trust stocks or crypto at that point. Also, if I saw during that time period too, if I saw furniture on the side of the road, I would figure out a way to get it back home and I would flip it. I would buy and sell things and flip them on, we got eBay, Amazon. In Australia, we have Gumtree and a bunch of other websites, classifieds where you can flip things. I was doing that as well, and that's easy. That's really easy. Someone will message you, turn up, and buy some furniture that you literally just picked up off the side of the road. I even found ovens and dishwashers and washing machines, and I was able to flip them quite easy. And that got me by, and I was actually stacking cash, saving money, um, and getting ahead over those years until I needed another hip replacement. Until I eventually uh, you know, just pulled the trigger and had to go in for the last hip replacement. Let me check to see the camera's still rolling. Whoa, we're still rolling and we're half an hour in exactly. So at that point, I needed to fork out the cash for a hip replacement. Very expensive, like 30,000 Australian dollars, something like that. It's ridiculously expensive. Not to mention, I needed crutches. I needed a special seat just so I could sit down. And what I did was I used my my newfound, um, not newfound, but uh, I had to figure out ways to hack this, and I was living with multiple people. I found at this point also I started scaling up the renting and the subleasing. Some of my friends called it slumlording, which is pretty funny. I had not only the lease that I was staying in, I had a 3 bedroom apartment that I converted into a 4 bedroom apartment. I um, I would find other leases and I'd rent them out. At my peak, I had 4 leases running simultaneously with 12 or 14 different people paying me cash while I was paying for the leases. And um, at one stage, I got a 6 month lease on an $8 or $9 million beautiful apartment in one of the richest areas in Australia, Mossman. And I converted that one into a um, I converted a 3 bedroom into a 4 bedroom. It was massive, and I had a view of the city. And I was living there for free while running multiple other leases. So figuring out that hack really did save me a lot of cash and got me ahead. And then we get basically to where I needed to have another hip replacement. Cost me a lot of money, a lot of pain, and I used game to pick up a girl who was not only half my age, but also quite hot, beautiful body, and willing to basically live with me and be my nurse while paying me rent. It cannot get any better than that. She was also paying me rent to live with me, to sleep with me, and while I had my hip replacement, basically became my carer. If I needed anything from the shops, she would help me out. And she would even sleep with me very carefully while I was recovering from my hip replacement. So uh, yeah, she couldn't have been any better. And then after that, I I was relatively pain free after both my hips being replaced. And around that time, I started seriously looking at, okay, well, how can I get some proper freedom, as in make some real money and try to get away? Um, and that was, I think, 6 or 7 years ago now. And around that time, I was still gaming a lot. I was still doing my geopolitics. Um, my passions started to monetize themselves. I was talking about geopolitics and economics, and around that time, I was just very lucky around that time where things that I was interested in just monetized themselves. I was part time advisor to a federal politician on foreign policy, um, and I would get big companies basically pay me consulting fees just based on my geopolitical analysis. It felt like they were trying to make it a business decision, and they got a fortune teller in. I felt like a fortune teller at that point, where they just wanted to know what I thought the future would be like in a certain region of the world where they had a financial interest, and whether it would be risky in another region of the world. And um, although that wasn't very lucrative, it still brought in some cash. And uh, what I started to do was build multiple streams of income. Like you'd have a Patreon back in those days. You would have some sort of a subscription fee. You would have somebody paying you to take calls, and uh, hell, I even had little websites like Quora paying me a certain amount per month. So I had a large account on Quora even back then, connected to my bank account, just paying me money. And uh, quite a few of my friends around that time period were saying, why don't you? And I had helped quite a few pickup coaches in the past and social media influencers. Some of the guys that I helped out with social media have 10, 20 million followers on Facebook and on YouTube and now TikTok. And uh, a lot of people were saying that your other passions really approaching girls, and uh, basically picking up girls. And I was hesitant to become a coach, and that's around 4 years ago. That's when I decided to start this channel. And uh, what I did was I used my work ethic, which is quite a good work ethic. I wrote a book, The Disabled Casanova. You can buy it on, it's on this channel, it's on the website. And I basically outline a lot of the things that I went through and a lot of the struggles. I kind of glazed over it here, created a digital product, um, an ebook to build the email list, built this website, and then I taught myself how to build websites. I built my own website and started writing articles and put in a lot of work to build this up. And now I basically have um, a system here where I've got all of these, basically have everything I need as a coach. And then I started coaching. I started not only coaching in Sydney CBD, but some guys wanted to do travel immersions. They wanted to go to different countries, and um, I wasn't really making money doing it. That's another factor as well. It might seem like I'm making a lot of money by doing these travel immersions, but I'm not. And my clients knew that. The fee for the coaching basically covered my flights and accommodation. And if I'm lucky, I have a little bit of extra left over. I wasn't really making a profit, but I got to travel and I got to game and I got to coach. And that's something that I wanted to do. It was in line with what I wanted to do at that time and this time now too. And that gave me the ability to basically travel for free while coaching. And it's not like I was traveling on my own. I spent a lot of time working hard, coaching my clients. Um, um, and some of my clients would definitely be testament to that, where I'm pushing them every day. There's no day off. Uh, and the work ethic is definitely there when you're doing a travel immersion. So that, to some extent, then more recently I started not only diversifying away from silver and gold and other financial instruments on there, and then more recently started moving into crypto. And I think crypto is right now the only opportunity you have to get out of the West. And so that was where I focused, and I've done a little, I've done okay out of crypto more recently. Uh, but if you have a look at how I kind of did this and how I kind of got ahead, I had to cut down my expenses. And number one, rent. I needed to just make enough money so that I could stack enough cash that I could find some sort of investment that would make more money over time while chasing what was my passions. But in the beginning, I couldn't chase my passion. I had to eat dirt. I legitimately had to work in construction, deliver pizza, wash dishes, be have abusive bosses in many cases, working under awful conditions with awful people, just so that I could uh, buy some freedom later on. And over time, you'll notice if you listen to my story, over time, I just slowly, gradually bought myself more freedom bit by bit by eating dirt. And then it got to the point where I was able to just game all the time, or most of the time, and only a small percentage of my days were spent working. And then I figured out a way where I could game and earn money by gaming, chasing my passions. And I dare say there's many things that you are doing right now that you're passionate about that you can figure out a way to monetize. But keep in mind, you have to be good at it too. Now, my geopolitical analysis, I would argue at the time, and very few people argued with this, was the best geopolitical analysis in Australia at the time. Um, my predictions, my projections were the most accurate, and they kept kicking goals, and that's why I started getting phone calls from, you know, politicians, getting invited places, having people pay for me to go to think tanks and speeches and meet certain people. I even had one of Australia's richest men stop me in the street and go, "Are we going to war with China?" I'm not even joking. I had legitimately one of Australia's richest, most famous men. Basically, he's not really the Donald Trump of Australia, but he's like one of those guys. Stopped me in the street and asked me, "Are we going to war with China?" Because he'd been following my channel, he'd been following my analysis. Um, and so, if you find a passion, you have to truly be passionate about it. And so, therefore, you, by being passionate about it, you are very good at it. Um, and then, surely the money should, in theory, come to you somehow. I never thought that talking about economics or geopolitics online would bring me any money, and it didn't really. It didn't really bring me a lot of money. It wasn't a lot of cash. The same as coaching. Coaching isn't really bringing me in a lot of cash. I remember my second or third year, I made a video outlining how much money I made, and well, a coach with a larger audience than myself, Avery. Hello, Avery, if you're out there. Um, he he actually said he saw my video and he told me how much money he was making. He was making approximately 20x what I was making. And so um, my financial situation is not predicated on making money through this. It is predicated on investments and other ways. I still, I still get calls, um, not so much from politicians these days, but I still get calls from people who want to know my geopolitical analysis, and I literally a week and a half ago had a consulting call, so it still comes in every now and then. And a lot of my clients, and this is why back in the day when I'm sure you guys have heard of Nomad Capitalist. It's a big company now, massive. That's why they reached out to me for a collaboration 5 years ago when they were starting out. It's because my geopolitical analysis was in line with theirs in a way. And if you do, let's just say, do an immersion with myself, you do coaching, let's just say in Asia, let's just say you come and meet me in Asia right here, you'll also benefit from that as well. Whatever country you're in, um, I can give a little bit more of a world sort of view, a big picture, macro, um, and give my opinion on what I think is going to happen in your region of the world, and also what regions of the world might be best for you to travel to if you're thinking of doing that as well. And some of the countries that I travel to, I I base that on my geopolitical analysis as well. Um, I and the country I'm in right now. There's things here that I want to check out and see firsthand based on geopolitics. But hopefully, it's a little bit more complex than, oh, okay, I did this one thing, I bought Bitcoin and got rich, I became a pickup coach and got rich. None of that's true. What happened was, uh, to make enough cash to buy my freedom, I basically needed to eat shit and work hard for a very long time to try to get ahead. And not one way was the hack. It was a combination of all of them together that gave me the ability to now take off. And I don't, fingers crossed, as long as everything goes well, I don't want to jinx myself because I have had some bad luck in my life. Um, Fingers crossed, if everything goes well, I'm hoping that I will have the ability to stay away from Australia for at least a decade and travel the world, and that's part of my plan, um, without working. And coaching, and when I have opportunities to do travel immersions or people want to come to me or I do coaching online, I don't really see that as work. I see that as it's part of my passion. It's something that I want to do, um, and it's just something that happens to make money, just because I'm lucky to be able to do it. Is the camera still rolling? That's the test. All right, we're still rolling, and we've probably been talking a little bit too long. So I'm going to end it right there. Hopefully, that's been valuable to you guys. If you're interested in doing a travel immersion, basically anywhere, I'm I'm considering going to Europe and maybe next summer. But if you want to do any sort of online coaching, I highly recommend it. Even if you're trying to figure out what regions of the world would best suit you, and if you've got enough money and you're thinking of traveling abroad, what countries um, should, in theory, based on the information we have at the moment, have a good future, and what countries are not only good for game but would have a good future for you to go to travel to and maybe live in, if that's something you're interested in. I bring a lot more to the table than the average coach. I bring the geopolitical analysis, and the travel aspects on where you can live, what countries will be safe moving forward. Um, just as a nugget of gold to give you guys. Dare I say it? Poland is great for pickup, but there's a high probability Poland gets wrecked in the next 12 months and gets bombed. Just saying. There's a high probability that Eastern European countries get wrecked moving forward. Just saying, just pointing out from a geopolitics 101, the most obvious thing for myself is that that could get wrecked. The other one is South Korea. If you're thinking of gaming in South Korea or you're living in South Korea, probably not a good idea right now because uh, these are two places where I see them getting wrecked. Um, and there's many other countries that are safer than them, have better demographics. You know, for instance, people are going to Thailand. What the fuck? People are going to Thailand. Look at the demographics. There's more old Thais than there are young Thais. There's more, I don't know if this is true, but it seems like there's more 80-year-old Thais than there are 18-year-old Thais. The demographics in that country They've just gone off a demographic cliff, and it's only going to get worse. Um, there's many other countries where there's hot 21-year-old girls um, in abundance, and this is all based on geopolitics. It's simple geopolitics 101. So um, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, and if you like it as well, subscribe. This is a dating channel. I talk about dating, focus more on cold approach, although I cover many other aspects. um, People have been asking me more about money and travel, and so I will start to produce more content around the Passport Bro stuff moving forward. And I'll use my geopolitical analysis to help that out. So anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video.